class, and welcome to your first review of your first exam for the English writing portion of the SAT. You need to realize that in order to get a passing score for the reading part, it's a combination of scores. It's the score that you make on your reading along with what you make on your English writing. So what SAT does is take those two scores and put them together to equal 430 points. So the sooner that you realize that you're going to have to not just work on reading, but you're going to have to work on the English writing and language test, the sooner that you will get your score and you will no longer have to be a part of the reading classroom. Most all of you I've got signed up for August the 29th or September 26th, depending on what your last score was. If you were really close, I signed you up for August 29th, and hopefully things will go well and you won't even need reading your senior year. For those of you that didn't score so well on the exam that was taking at school, I signed you up for September 26th to give me a little bit more time to help you get a passing score. Tell you a little bit about the agenda that I'm planning. You can count on a couple of things. I want to be creative. I want to make this a little bit more fun than it's going to be. Of course, teaching in the classroom for me and you being the student is a whole lot more fun than sitting at home and watching a video. However, I think there are things that we can do to make it a little bit more exciting. And some of my plans are on Tuesdays, I want to do testing Tuesdays. So rather than Taco Tuesdays, we're doing testing Tuesdays. And so I will have an exam every Tuesday for you to do, and maybe even other days, but especially on Tuesdays that you can look forward to try to get a good score. Practice is what will create the score you need. I also want to do on Fridays what I'm going to call face-to-face Fridays. While I will not be in the classroom, I feel like that contact with each one of you is going to be critically important to get the score you need. So throughout the weekend, beginning on a Friday, depending on when you feel like I can contact you, I want to do group sessions on the phone so that we can kind of discuss the issues and where you're struggling, and let me explain just a little bit more, especially as we approach the test. So Tuesdays are going to be testing Tuesdays, and Fridays are going to be face-to-face, even if it is just by the phone. The other days we'll be doing review. You'll be able to do questions. I'm planning on right now doing Big Blue Button, although I'm going to work on that this weekend, and that doesn't appear to be working as well as what I would like for it to work. So, you know, if the NBA can put on virtual people and you see every one of them, there should be no reason why we can't do the same and almost feel like we're right in the classroom. I also want to set up something that is awards for you guys as we move forward for those who test the highest. So, you know, sometimes it's important to, especially when you're going to be by yourself working, it's important to acknowledge those who are scoring the highest. So, you know, it might be that I'll be able to get some coupons somewhere and maybe mail those out to you if you score in the top 10. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that yet, but I plan to do some awards, and, you know, maybe that we can, you know, challenge each other to do better and do our best. And hopefully if we put this thing together right, you know, we're going to have even more people passing quicker. But it is going to take some discipline on your part, just as it will take discipline for me to make sure that you are learning, to make sure that you're going to class, and to make sure that you're okay. That being said, starting Monday, you will be required to report to class. I've had this question from many students. On Monday, the 10th, you will be going to class because so many of you are launch ed, and right now everyone is launch ed. You'll be going to class at 7:20 depending on what your first period class is. So your teacher should have a link to first period. I will have a link to my first period students so that we can meet up and begin the process of learning how to pass this exam. And then you'll go to second period, just like you were at school, just like you got up and you walked over to the next trailer. That is your classroom. There should be a link there. There will also be a break for lunch. So basically, you're going to have the same schedule you had at school, only it's going to come to you virtually. And it's not going to be a perfect science, so don't expect it to be in the beginning. We have got to learn how to do this well. And you need to tell us when you're experiencing issues. If you're not able to see us, let us know. Maybe there's a better way to do this. If you're not able to connect because of issues with internet, let us know. Let the school know. We can fix those problems, but we can't fix it if you don't let us know. So I am open to any kind of discussion that you need to have. You have my phone number, almost all of you. There's no reason not to contact me or text me in particular and let me know, hey, Coach Noel, I'm not in the meeting. I don't know what's going on. Or, hey, Coach Noel, I don't even have internet. So what do we do? Well, maybe that becomes more of a phone call instead of perhaps being on the internet. We can always call each other. I can spend some time with you going over an exam if I need to. That's part of what I want to start doing on Friday. Right now, there's a lot of you. There's like 200 of you who have not passed their reading. So when I start off making these face-to-face phone calls with 5 students at a time, you got to realize I'm going to have to make 40 phone calls to get to everybody. So I won't have as much time as I will later as people pass. You know, when we get to the end of the year and we have maybe 25 left, you're talking about me having to make 5 phone calls. I can give you an hour at a time working on reading in order to make sure you pass. So we're going to get creative and we're going to do things. And when you have ideas or suggestions that would help, please feel free to let us know. And not just me, let your principal know when things are going well. Let me know, though, if you could first, if something's happening and you can't get information from me before you go to the principal, because I'm sure she's overwhelmed with a lot of phone calls even now as we're talking. I'm sure she's getting a lot of phone calls from students, from parents, on whether they should do face-to-face or whether they should do Launch Ed. That's a personal decision for each and every one of you. For me, I plan to do Launch Ed the first semester. And we're going to hope and pray that this thing goes away and that we can all be back in class at the beginning of the year. And then we can have homecoming and have those proms and have all those special events that you're looking forward to. So let's get busy and make this thing work so that later on, if we have to do this again, everyone is confident that we can make it happen. The way I know I make it happen is when I see passing scores. So that being said, we're going to start with the English writing exam. So the test that I sent you, you need to turn to page 18. Even if you've not done the exam, even if you don't have answers ready, just going over this with me right now will benefit you. Even if you don't have the transition words list, which is critical. And a lot of you don't have it because I haven't got it out there to you yet. A lot of you do have it because you were in with me early when I first started doing videos. Even if you don't have that, this will help. You can also go over this more than once. It will help you a lot to be able to go over it. So let's start with number 1. Number 1 says, over the past generation, people in many parts of the U.S. have become accustomed to dividing their household waste products into different categories for recycling. And then it's got the word regardless underlined. And it says paper may go into one container, glass and aluminum in another. Well, regardless is one of those transition words that you have on your transition folder. And what you need to realize is that learning those transition words is going to help you get a question like this right. For instance, regardless is the type of word that there's 3 types of transition words. There's addition, there's what we call causation, and causation are words that what happened in the next sentence happened because of the first sentence. So you have to have words like therefore, things happen because of something else. Then you have words like however, regardless, nevertheless. Those words are words that the best way for you to understand are words that when you're moving to another sentence and you're transitioning from the previous sentence, those words are the opposite. You're getting ready to say something contrary to what you just said. So, in other words, in this sentence, regardless would say, paper may go into one container, glass and aluminum in another. So that part of that sentence, is that the opposite of what happened in the previous sentence? Well, if you really look at it, it's really not. Because look at the end of that sentence. It said, to dividing their household waste products into different categories. We're talking about different categories. And then we're talking about paper can go in one container, glass and aluminum in another, and regular garbage in a third. So what are those parts of those sentences referring back to the first sentence? Well, if you really think about it, those are examples. So, in other words, the answer is D. For example, paper goes in one container, glass and aluminum in another, and regular garbage in a third. So those are examples of household waste products into different categories. However, and furthermore, first is an addition word, so you're not really adding additional information there. You're showing examples. However is one of those contrast words where the opposite's getting ready to occur, just like regardless. Well, regardless and however mean the same thing. So you're going to wipe those out right off the bat. So the answer had to be C or D, and the answer is D because they're examples. Okay, let's go to number 2. Always read. You don't need to read this entire thing to get the English right. Always read the question, then go find the answer. Number 2 says, which choice best maintains the style and tone of the passage? Okay, so it says style and tone. Students, you understand what style means because most all of you got style, right? Maybe I don't have maybe my style's not great, a little wrinkled here today, but the real truth is you understand style. So we're going to try to remain in style with the right word. Well, what do the words say? It says, the sentence says, that's underlined, it says, it also enhances soil texture, encouraging healthy roots and minimizing or annihilating the need for chemical fertilizers. Well, the key words in the sentence are encouraging, healthy roots, and minimizing or blank the need for chemical fertilizers. So do we annihilate? Is that part of style here where we're annihilating the need for chemical fertilizers? Or would we annihilate a fertilizer? No, we wouldn't. So now we're down with ousting, eliminating, closing the door on. Would we close the door on chemical fertilizers? No, that doesn't make any sense. So you're down to eliminating and ousting. So you got to decide, read what put it in the sentence. Eliminating the need for chemical fertilizers. Ousting, do we oust chemical fertilizers? I think not. The simple answer, eliminating chemical fertilizers, is the answer. Look at number 3. It says, better than soil at holding moisture, compost minimizes water waste and storm runoff. It increases savings. Look at the word it. You've already referred to better than soil at holding moisture. You've already referred to compost. You don't need any extra pronoun to refer back to compost. We know we're talking about compost in this sentence. So right off the bat, we're going to say it doesn't need the word it. But what does it need? Well, you're going to have to figure out whether you're using a singular or plural verb, whether you're talking about one thing or more than one thing. So let's look at it. It says better than soil at holding moisture, compost. Compost is how many? How many is compost? Compost minimizes water, waste, and storm runoff. So then you've got a comma right after water, waste, and storm runoff. Okay? So you're also talking about just compost. So how many is compost? What does compost do? It increases savings on watering costs and helps reduce erosion on embankments near bodies of water. You would not need extra words like also it increases. Watch out for that. You don't need to add extra words. Or savings increase. Let's read savings increase in there.
Better than oil at holding moisture, compost minimizes water waste and storm runoff, increases savings on watering costs, and helps reduce erosion. I want you to look real carefully there at the words that are being used. What is compost doing? It minimizes and it also helps. You know those two words are correct because they're not underlined. So now you've got to figure, you got to use the word what? Increases. Okay? Because you've got to stay consistent. So B says savings increase. So you're not going to choose that one. You're not going to use extra words like also it, and you don't need it. So the answer was C, increases savings. Now, if for some reason you didn't understand my rationale behind all that, write that down on your paper. When we talk on a Friday, it will be time, or come Monday, when we're in our first meeting. If we can have time to talk about it, then let's talk about it, and I can explain it further. Okay, look at number 4. Number 4 is critically important for several reasons because the answer is right there. Remember this, anytime that you have, let me get a little closer. Anytime that you have a parentheses in a sentence, you have to have one that closes it. So the first thing you do when you see an answer with a parentheses in it, and that's the first thing I notice in the answers, there's a couple of them with the parentheses. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go, oh, see, there's one parentheses. So the answer has to be one that has the other parentheses in it. So now I know that I'm down to, this one doesn't have, the one underlined doesn't have a parentheses. So now I'm down to B and D. And what's the difference? One has a semicolon and one's got a colon. Well, let's check and see if we can even use a semicolon. And it says, in large quantities, which, okay? So is in large quantities which a complete sentence? Because before a colon or a semicolon, and I've gone over this before and we'll go over it again. Before a colon or a semicolon, you have to have a complete sentence. So is in large quantities which a complete sentence? No. So you cannot use D. So your answer is B to close in the parentheses. Look at number 5. The writer wants to include information from the graph that is consistent with the description of compost in the passage. Which choice most effectively accomplishes this goal? Well, if you notice, that's the graph they're referring to. So you've got to turn to that page and look at that. It says, in spite of all compost, potential users, however, most of this so-called waste is wasted. Well, what is compost? That's the key here. You've got to know what compost is to select the right answer. It says, according to the Environmental Protection Agency, overbought ended up in U.S. landfills. 2 things. The sentence starts off with the word compost, so you know you're talking about compost. So you've got to pick on the graph the part that talks about compost. Well, what is compost? Compost is food waste. It's not plastics, it's not papers, it's not metals or wood or any of those other categories on the graph. So now you know that you're talking about in this paragraph is food waste. You go back, you look at the portion and you look where food waste is, and food waste is about 33 million. So you go back to your answers, you find the one that's talking about 33 million, and the answer is D. So if you're really good at math, this is one answer that you should have got right. Now, let me say this about graphs before we move to the next question. They are putting graphs, and there's always at least one, in an English writing section. Approach the graph as very simple. It would be very unfair for them to put a very difficult graph in the English writing section. So some of you look at a graph and you automatically get a panic about I'll never figure it out. No. You will get it if you just calm down, look at it slowly. The answer is right there in front of your face usually. Okay, look at number 6. The writer wants to support the paragraph's main idea with accurate, relevant information from the graph. Which choice most effectively accomplishes that goal? Well, what does it say? It says, remarkably, less glass was discarded in landfills in that year than any other substance. Well, let's go over and let's see. Was less glass No, glass is right here. There's two categories that are less. Let's look at the other one. It says more metal was. Well, metal's in the middle. It can't be that one. More food waste? Yes, more food waste. See how easy that was? There was more food waste. That's true. More yard waste? No. So what you do is you eliminate, make sure you eliminate all three of the others, and the answer has to be more food waste because that's what makes the sentence true. Remarkably, more food waste was discarded in landfills in that year than any other substance. Look at number 7. You have to know, and this is going to be on the test, it's on the test almost every time, the difference between then and than. Then is order, chronological order. Something happens, then this happens, then that happens, then that happens. Than is amounts. Something is more than something. So when it clues you in, you're talking about amounts, you're going to pick the word than. Okay, so let's go back and look at the sentence. It says, even worse than the squandering of this useful resource is the fact that compost and landfills cannot break down due to the lack of necessary air and moisture. Okay, so would you say then or than? And are we talking about amounts? Are we talking about order? We're talking about amounts. It says even worse than the squandering of this useful resource is the fact that compost and landfills cannot break due to the lack of necessary air and moisture. So if something is even worse than something, then you are talking about, and we are talking about in here, we're certainly not talking about order. So you've got to go with the word than. Okay, and we've been talking about amounts. So even worse than the squandering. So which than would it be? Do you need a comma after worse? No, you don't. Don't fall for the extra comma. They really like to put this on the English writing exam. They like to overuse them. You don't need a comma there. It reads fine. You don't need to pause. And a comma means pause. Even worse than the squandering of this useful resource is the fact that compost and landfills cannot break down. Okay, look at number 8. 8 says, as a result, organic material that is sent to landfills contribute to the release of methane. Contribute is the verb. So when you see all of those verbs, you know they're trying to get you to match the right verb tense with the right subject, singular or plural. So what are we talking about? What contributes? Well, organic material does. So material, how many is material? Material is 1, right? So how do we know which verb to use now that we know that we're talking about one thing? Okay, so material does not have an S on it, so it's talking about one thing. Well, I like to use the pronoun check, is what I call it. I take the two words he and they and put it to the verbs that are in the question and figure out which one it is, because I know one, he is one and they is more than one. So would I say he contribute or he contributes? I would say he contributes. I wouldn't say he contribute. I would say they contributes. So I'm talking about one thing. So in that case, it would be the material that is sent to landfills contributes. The answer would be C. Would we say are contributor or have contributor? No. No. Contributes is the correct verb. To the release of methane, a very potent greenhouse gas. Now, on this question, we're talking about knowing vocabulary. So you got 4 words: potent, sturdy, influential, and commanding. So you have to decide which one of the vocabulary words is the correct answer. If you don't know any of them, then leave it for letter of the day. Just leave it out and move on. And you're going to come back and make a good guess based on the letter of the day. If you do know what a couple of them mean, then let's see if we can't work it out. Well, first of all, we're talking about a greenhouse gas. So would a gas be influential? No. Can a gas be commanding? No. So you got to decide whether a gas can be potent or a gas can be sturdy. Well, you know a gas is not sturdy. So that only leaves potent. And even if you know it can't be the other 3, you've got to pick the word potent, even if you don't know what potent means. So the answer was no change. Okay, look at number 10. Number 10 has the first sentence underlined. So when you're looking at that, you got to know that you're transitioning from the previous paragraph to this paragraph. And whatever you say in that first sentence has to relate back to the paragraph you just talked about. And I've discussed this with you before in that, whenever you are, good writers know to transition and remain on topic, meaning they know to stick to the subject. You got your best friend standing over here and he's telling you all about, at the Mexican restaurant, all that he wants to eat, that he's going down there to eat. He says, what do you want to go for? And you're talking about it, and then all of a sudden he talks about McDonald's. Well, that would be off subject. So that would not make any sense. You're like, I thought we were going to go eat down at Azteca. You don't understand why you put that in there. So you have to do the same thing with your writing. You got to stick to the subject. So for instance, the previous paragraph says, it's talking about composting. And it says, as a result, organic material that is sent to landfills contribute to the release of methane. So what were you talking about? You've got to refer back to that area that you're talking about, compost. You had a graph, you had everything. So would you start off while composting can sometimes lead to accidental pollution? We've not been talking about accidental pollution. So you're not going to lead off with this paragraph with accidental pollution. Though government regulations vary. Have we been talking about government control? No. Mindful of this setback. Have we talked about setbacks? No. But armed with these facts, we've been talking about facts, about all the different areas on the graph. We talked about facts. So the answer would be C. Armed with these facts, cities such as San Francisco and Seattle have instituted mandatory composting laws. Look at number 11. Number 11, I see the word or, nor, but, and. And part of the SAT tips, and guys, I will get the SAT tips out to you again. You need a copy. Is that when you see the word or, and when you see the word nor, then you've got to do a fact check in that sentence first. If an answer like B says nor, then you're going to go back in the sentence and look for the word neither. Because you can't say nor without saying neither in the English language. You say neither John nor Mary wanted to go. But when we look back, there's not neither. And you've got to be very careful and underline all with your finger, the whole passage looking for the word neither. Well, it's not there. When you got the word or, you're looking for the word either. Well, let's see. Oh, wow, there it is. So if I've got the word either, I've got to have the word or because I'm talking about either two things. So the answer has to be no change. But and don't work. And that's on your SAT tips. So you're going to need to keep reviewing those. And that's part of what we'll really dig deep into whenever I do my face-to-face Fridays over the phone. We're going to go over those rules. Make sure you know them before you get there on August 29th. Okay, look at number 12. Now, one of the things that you're going to learn as we move along, and you don't realize it yet, but the bigger you buy into this and the sooner you do, the more likely you are to pass. Watch out for same word answers, and sometimes, and many times, the shorter answer is the answer. And here's why. Because these exams are meant for colleges to test students to see if they would be good or be good writers at the college level. For you, what you're doing is taking the test for your reading requirement. So you have to learn why these exams are there in the first place. So if you're a college professor, you're grading thousands of papers. You don't have time for, a lot of extra words. So you want your students to get to the point with good writing. So I know many of your teachers in the past, including myself, has taught you use lots of descriptive language. Sometimes you've even written papers when they told you had to have 500 words, you just added words because you were at 300 just for the heck of it to make sure you made it to 500. Well, I'm going to tell you, your teachers knew you were doing that. Okay, but it's not good writing skills. Cut out all the fluff. You do not need it in good writing. And that's what they're testing you for here to see if you realize that. So let's look at number 12. It says the street is a sea of red. Red is the traditional Chinese color. You wouldn't say red, red, back to back. That's not good writing. So first of all, we know it's wrong in the sentence. But then when you look over here, you see just the one word red, and then you see extra words tied into red. So let's look at it. Can we just say red? And with a comma, the street is a sea of red, the traditional Chinese color of luck and happiness? Yes, you can. So the answer was the one word, red. And that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. The shorter answer, here's the rule of thumb. The shorter answer is the answer many times, but not all of the time. So if you go through here and you mark all the shorter answers, you're highly likely not to pass. You have to know when to pick that shorter answer and when it makes sense. Look at number 13. It says, buildings are draped with festive red banners and garlands. Well, the first thing I notice is I got a dash. And if this is located in the middle, what do we do with how do we know about dashes? Okay. If what you're trying to emphasize with dashes is in the middle, you need two. If it's at the beginning or the end, you need one. Okay, so let's see if we can, I see a dash, let's see if we can eliminate that right off the bat and move on. Buildings are dash draped, there's not another dash there to go with the other dash at the end. So you know C can't be because it's in the middle and there's not another dash to go with it. Then you look at it and you see that, would you put a comma after red before banners? No, that's a descriptive adjective. There's way too many commas in the one that's in. So now we're down to B or D. So would you put, do you need commas there? Could you just say buildings are draped with festive red banners and garlands? You got the word and connecting two things. You don't need a comma. The answer is D. Number 14, which choice most effectively completes the explanation of a possible origin of the line dance? And the question says, go read the sentence. It says, some evidence suggests that the earliest version of the dance was an attempt to ward off an evil spirit. Okay, so what we know before we get to the semicolon is that the first part, because the semicolon is not underlined, is correct. Some evidence suggests that the earliest version of the dance was an attempt to ward off an evil spirit. So the next sentence, since it's a semicolon, you're going to have two independent sentences that go together. They make sense. They could stand alone. Well, we're talking about warding off evil spirits. You have to understand conceptually what that means. It's simple. We're warding off evil spirits. So that means we're scaring somebody, right? So what's the answer? It would be C. Villagers dressed in lion costumes to scare the spirit away. Don't make this test hard. It's really not. It's really not. If you just use rationale, the answers are there, and you can find the answer every time. There are 44 questions on this English writing. You have to get just 20 right. You can miss 24. But sometimes the simplest answer is going to be the answer. And when we think way beyond where we should, which you've been trained to do that, we do that as you're coming through. We tell you, this is rigorous. You need to think way beyond what's going on here. That's not how these test exams work. There is nothing wrong with thinking way beyond. It's how scientists discover so much more. But the real truth is, this exam is what it is. You have to take each question for what it is, break it down, and come up with the answer. And don't make it, there's no such thing as what if, could be, would be. It is what it is, and it's the answer. Look at number 15. Which choice most effectively concludes the paragraph? All right, so we have to match up what's going on in the paragraph. And it says, the paragraph is the previous one before. It's talking about another theory is that an emperor, upon walking from a dream about a lion, hired an artist to choreograph the dance. The current function of the dance is celebration. Okay, so which sentence would be the best ending? And keep in mind, all of these stories have already been written before somebody created an exam out of it. So if you keep that in mind, sometimes it's easier to create the story, because with these answers that you're putting in, you're recreating the story that was already there. Basically, whoever does the exam underlines something, puts in something that's wrong, and puts answers to fool you on the other side. So what are we talking about here? Well, we've been talking about warring off evil spirits. We've been talking about Emperor waking from a dream about a lion. He was hired a choreographer of the dance. So we're talking about a dance. We're talking about what? A celebration. Well, the current function of the dance is celebration. That is not a good ending. That's not good writing. Let's look at D. Things are different these days, of course. No, that doesn't make sense. B says it turns out that the origin of the lion dance are irrelevant. Nothing about this story has said these things are irrelevant. The answer is C. Whatever its origins, because it was talking about where it originated from, today the lion dance is a joyous spectacle, a celebration of the promise of the new year. Look at number 16. The lion dance requires the strength, grace, and coordination of two dancers. So you're talking about two. So would you say both are almost completely hidden? Both of whom are almost completely hidden? Of which both, or both of them? And the answer to that one is both of whom are almost completely hidden. The answer is A. Now, I'm not going to explain that one as much as I will later on when we're talking about the word whom and who. It'll make more sense. But for the record right now, the answer to that one is both of whom. Okay, look at number 17. It says, many of the moves in the dance, such as jumps, rolls, and kicks, are similar to martial arts and acrobatics. Well, you got to take the content again. It says, many of the moves in the dance, such as jumps, rolls, and kicks, are similar to martial arts and acrobatics. Now, they're talking about jumps, rolls, and kicks. And they're saying they're similar to martial arts and acrobatics. But martial arts and acrobatics contain a lot of things more than jumps, rolls, and kicks. So you have to say, you don't say the disciplines of martial arts, you don't say martial arts and acrobatics, you say those in martial arts and acrobatics, because you're comparing it to those functions that are in those martial arts and acrobatics. So you have to pick D. And I will tell you too, I have 8 of these exams, and this is one of the harder ones. So if you got 20 right out of this one, you're in good shape before we get to the exam. And I'm going to ask you, once we're done, to send me how many you got right. Hopefully we'll hear a lot of very good news, and get your name on the board. Okay, number 18 says, which choice provides information that is most consistent in style and content with the information about the symbolism of the tortoise? Okay, look what it says over there. It says the lion's head is often adorned with a phoenix, a mythical bird or tortoise, for longevity. Well, it's this simple. It says the tortoise for longevity, so it's talking about time. So it says, the question says, which provides information that is most consistent in style and content? Well, then you got to talk about time. So which answer with the phoenix is talking about time? It would be B, for new beginnings. That's the answer. Okay, number 19, we always skip, because it takes way too much time for you to get it right. You need to finish the test and come back with the time you have left to do number 19. The answer is D, after sentence 7. And it's asking you to make this paragraph most logical. Sentence 5 should be placed where? That's chronological order. Sentence 5 would be after sentence 7. It would make it read much better. But I want you to get used to skipping. There's always 2 of them. I want you to get used to skipping that one and then coming back and trying to figure out the order that sentence would have been in. Most of you can do that. But if you spend 15 minutes doing that, you're not going to finish the English writing exam. This is the time to make this point. If you spend extra time on questions and you don't know automatically what the answer is, then you probably are not going to pass. You will not pass if you only get 30 of these questions right on English writing. You've got to get to all 44 of them. And that gives you room to get 20 right. Some of you are going to get 25 right. Some of you are going to do great. But that does give you room, if you get them all done, to come back and get enough right to get a 430 score. Okay, we're going to do number 20, and then we're going to stop for a 5-minute break, and then I'm going to come back and get started again. It says, and the line dance reaches its climax. You need to know that it's the same thing as it is. Okay, so anytime you see it apostrophe s, go back and plug in it is, and if it doesn't sound right, it's not the answer. It says the line dance reaches it is climax. That can't be right. But the difference between it's and there is always one thing. You've got to know that. If you don't know it, it's one of the biggest things you're going to miss. When we refer to, with the word it's, we're talking about one thing. When we're talking about there, T-H-E-I-R, we're talking about more than one. Okay, and T-H-E-R-E means something is over there. All right, so let's look at the question. It says the line dance reaches its climax. We're talking about one thing, aren't we? A dance. So when we're talking about one thing, then we got to pick the word its. The answer was B, I-T-S. Okay, we're going to take about a 5-minute break here, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to finish off the exam.
Okay, it's not been quite 5 minutes, but you know, you can always pause the video and take your 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever you need. But I want to get on, I want to get this finished and get this to you later on this evening. Look at number 21. Number 21 says, approaching a doorway in which dangles a red envelope filled with green paper money, the lion's teeth. You got to make sure to read the sentence correctly and know what it's discussing when it comes to the subject. Here's the key to this one. And it's one of my favorite ones to go over in the classroom. It says, approaching a doorway in which dangles a red envelope filled with green paper money. What's approaching the doorway? It says the lion's teeth. Are the lion's teeth approaching the doorway? Think about that a minute. You don't have teeth approaching the doorway. You got a lion approaching the doorway. So which one is correct? Look at C. C says the envelope is approaching the doorway. That can't be right. D says the teeth. But B says lion snares the envelope with its teeth. So what makes sense is approaching a doorway in which dangles a red envelope filled with the green paper money, the lion snares the envelope with its teeth, not the lion's teeth. The envelope's not approaching the doorway. So you got to understand that the first part is referencing to the subject. Well, the subject, the thing that's approaching is the lion, not his teeth, and not the envelope, and certainly not the teeth on D. Look at number 22. The first thing I see is a short answer. And I got a lot of other words, but all of them involve the envelope. So if I can just say envelope, that's what I'm going to say. It says it then chews up the bills and spits out the envelope, the money-filled envelope. We've talked about it being filled with green paper money. You don't need to say that again instead of chewing it up. So can we just say envelope? Yes, of course we can. The answer is D, the shorter answer, envelope. Look at 23. It says, which choice best fits the tone of the rest of the paragraph? All right, so now we're looking at those and they're all different words, so that means they're trying to get you to figure out vocabulary. This one's a little harder. It says, court reporters for years have been the record keepers of the court, taking scrupulous notes. Well, what kind of notes were we taking? Do we take intense notes, spot-on notes, super rigorous notes, or scrupulous? I don't think you'd say you're taking spot-on notes, and I don't think you'd take intense notes. So you're either going to say super rigorous or scrupulous, and when you narrow it down to two, you got to make a good guess. Super rigorous means really, really working at it hard. Scrupulous means very detailed. So the answer is scrupulous. Look at 24. Number 24 says, during hearings, depositions, and other legal proceedings. Okay, so notice there is a semicolon between hearings and depositions. Is that where we would put a semicolon? No, because semicolons connect. What do they connect again? They connect complete sentences or list. You would never put a semicolon right after hearings and then say depositions. So do you even need a semicolon, or what do you need? Do you just need commas? Well, read that. It says scrupulous notes during hearings, depositions, and other legal proceedings. So the answer would be you just need commas. The answer would be C. The other three, I'll use a semicolon. You can't use a semicolon right there in the middle where a comma should be. You can't do that. Okay. We're back to another chart. We tackle the chart, and the way we do it is we want to look at it and say this has got to be very simple. It says, at this point, the writer's considering adding the following graph. And you've got your graph there. What is it talking about? It's talking about a salary comparison for court reporters. So it says, at 25, would you add in there anything about salary comparisons? Well, we're not talking at all about salary comparisons. So the answer is simple. No, we wouldn't. So the answer is no, because it presents information that it's not directly related to the paragraph's discussion. Now, here's the thing about that one. I know mentally you go, why would you put a big old graph in a test like this when it didn't need to be there and ask me whether it should be there or not? Because they know that you're going to pick the other answer. that somehow you're going to convince yourself that you need to include it. No, you don't, because this is about salary comparisons, and we've not been talking about salary comparisons in the paragraph. Again, realize when we write well, we go from one sentence to the next sentence to the next sentence, just like a puzzle. Everything has to connect and relate to what you're talking about. You just don't throw in added information for no reason. Have we been talking about salaries? Then yes, that probably would have been a good graph, but we're not talking about salaries. So the answer was no. It presents information that is not directly related to the paragraph's discussion. C. Look at number 26. It says, as the machine records everything faithfully as it occurs and is not subject to human errors. So which one will we pick? Subject to, subjected from, or subject for? Which ones can we eliminate? Well, we would say it is not subjected from. We wouldn't say that, because we would say it was coming from the human errors. Subject to human errors, yes, there can be human errors that are part of what's going on. So the answer is subject to human errors. Look at 27. 27 says, as record keepers. So it says, however, the rise of high quality record technology, reliance on court reporters as record keepers is decreasing. How many are we talking about reporters? We're talking about more than one. So would we say record keeper? No, because we're talking about more than one. So we know we got to go with keepers. Do we need the word each as record keepers? No, because each is talking about them individually. The answer is simple, as record keepers. So that's even the shorter answer in that case. Reliance on court reporters as record keepers is decreasing. Number 28, to make the paragraph most logical, sentence 6 should be placed where? And you have to find sentence 6. However, with the rise of high quality recording technology, so however means it's going to be the opposite of what you just said. And if you go to number 3, it says the typed words are instantaneously translated into a computer screen for the judge to view, and the transcript is used later by people who want to review the case, such as journalists and lawyers. Then you would say, however, the rise of high quality recording technology, reliance on court reporters as record keepers is decreasing. That's where you'd put it after sentence 3, and the answer was C. Again, you're going to skip that one. That one was harder. So you're going to come back to it when you got time, because skipping 2 is not going to hurt you. You don't want to spend 15 minutes trying to figure that out, and then you can't get the whole English writing section done. You're going to get 30 done. You get 30 done, you're not going to pass. You've got to get all 44 done. Okay, but we're also going to talk if you don't finish what you do. It's it. Number 29 says, which choice most effectively combines the sentences at the underlined portion? And when you are combining sentences, you pick the shortest answer. Well, the shortest answer here is opposite dash. And it says, champions of court reporting, though, argue the opposite. They argue that with increased reliance on technology, so the second sentence with the dash is what's being emphasized. The answer was B, the shorter answer. When they ask you to combine the sentences, 95% of the time, it's the shorter answer. You've got to learn that and get that in your head so that you're ready for that. Look at number 30. Because digital systems record indiscriminately, and then they got a colon. Well, I know that's not right already, because the first part is not a complete sentence, because digital systems record indiscriminately. So that's not going to be the answer. So I've got a choice of 2 commas and a period. Well, if because digital systems record indiscriminately, it's not a sentence, then you can't use a period there, so C can't be right. So now you've got the extra word therefore and just they. Do you need the word therefore? No. You can just say, because digital systems record indiscriminately, they cannot discern important parts of the proceedings. All you need is a comma there, just a comma. Okay? Look at number 31. Then it says a digital device does indeed record everything, but that includes loud noises such as book dropping that can make the actual words spoken impossible to hear. So you've got despite this, which is a contrast word, consequently and therefore mean the same thing, because they are both what kind? Consequential. Something happened because of another, but they're in the same category. And when you learn that transition list, you're going to say, therefore and consequently can't be the answer because they mean the same thing. And you would have 2 right answers here. So you're down to in other words or despite this.
Despite this would be the answer if that sentence was the opposite of what just occurred. It's really not. They're just saying the same thing. They're explaining what they just said. In that case, your answer would be B, in other words. Number 32. Number 32, I see a shorter answer. And the pops right up for me. And if I can just use the two words and the, I'm going to. It says, a court reporter, however, can distinguish between the words and the extrinsic noises. That's all you need. You don't need all those extra words, also between the and when there were, and distinguish. The answer was and the. That simple. Look at 33. Which choice provides the best supporting example for the main idea of the paragraph? Okay, so what is the main idea of the paragraph? Well, the paragraph talks about champions of court reporting. You can go back and look at it because digital systems record, they cannot discern important parts of the proceedings, so from other noises in the courtroom. A digital device does indeed record everything, but includes loud noises. So if there's any loud noises, it's going to pick up on it. A court reporter, however, can distinguish between, so if you got your court reporter in there, a person doing the notes, they can distinguish between the words and the extrinsic noises that need not be recorded. They're not going to record those noises. And then it says also if a witness mumbles, a human court reporter can pause court proceedings to ask the witness to repeat what he or she has said. In some cases, digital recording does what? Well, it just said it gives you a problem. It gives you an issue because you're hearing all those noises. So what would happen is, what's the consequence? Has led to the need for retrial because of indistinct testimony from key witnesses. That is one of the harder questions to answer. If you got that one right, you did well. Look at number 34. 34, transition words. You're going to need your transition words, and we're going to go over this and over this. So what doesn't make sense now is certainly going to make sense before the test. You got however, accordingly, subsequently, and moreover. Okay, moreover is addition, so you're just adding information. However is contrast. That means the opposite is occurring. Accordingly, it means that you're just adding additional, accordingly, this and this happened. And subsequently is causation. Something happened, subsequently this happened. So the sentence happened because of the previous sentence. So let's look at it. It says, the shape that fire assumes on Earth is a result of gravitational influence in the movement of molecules. In the microgravity environment of space, combustion and the resulting fire behave in fundamental different ways. So would we say moreover? Are we giving additional stuff? Or how about the word however? However, combustion and the resulting fire behave in fundamentally different ways. The key word is different. So you're talking about something different than what you just talked about. So the transition word you want to use there is however. Look at number 35. 35 says, a group of engineers, students from the University of California at San Diego, for example, tried to find a method to make their biofuel combustion study free of the drawbacks researchers face on Earth. So if you're a researcher and you're an engineering student, what are you doing? Do you try to find a method? Do you strove for a method? Do you look for a method to study? Or did they, for example, sought a method to study combustion? So they actually were searching. So they sought a method for study combustion of biofuels. The answer was D. The best thing you can do there is look and see each sentence if it fits in with what's being talked about. You just have to know conceptually that engineering students would be seeking, so the word is sought, a method to study combustion of biofuels. I don't like that question that much, to be honest with you. And there's going to be those questions on the exam that are going to be, marginally what you really think, or maybe one of the other ones so close, you go, Coach, that one's right too. There's going to be a little bit of that. And so be ready to pick what you consider the best answer. 36 says, which choice provides the most precise description of the phenomenon depicted in the previous sentence? Okay, so the previous sentence is talking about the standard method involves burning droplets of fuel. So we're talking about droplets of fuel and burning them. But Earth's gravitational influence causes the droplets to use spherical symmetry. So if something's a sphere, it's a circle, right? So which choice provides the most precise description? So it changes its symmetry. It changes the fact that it no longer is, it doesn't have the sphere shape. So is that a deformation, an alteration, a transformation, or a modification? So what's happened here? So the answer is it's not transformation, because you're not making the drop something else. They're really not modified. It says what's happening to the droplets to lose spherical ministry while burning. This deformation results. So now it's deformed. It's not altered into something else, it's deformed. So the answer is A, no change. Next question says, in subtle variations in density that both do what? So, first of all, I'm looking at, we're talking about variations in density. So we're talking about variations, and how many is that? That's more than one. In density that both. So variations, do they cause or they causes? Well, they cause. So you know the answer's got to be B or C. Has is probably not needed, and it's not. So the answer's, and plus it's caused. So you're going to lose for cause B or cause C. And what's the difference? One of them has limits, and the other one has limit. Well, would you say they limits or they limit? And you would say limit. So the answer would be cause and even heat flow and limit. Again, you're deciding whether that subject is singular or plural. If it's singular, then you've got to have singular verbs every time. If it's plural, you got to have plural. I do the pronoun check. I know if I'm using the word he, which is one, that I would say he causes. I would say they cause. So would I say it would say he limits, but I would say they limit. So the answer has to be B, because you're talking about more than one. You're talking about variations with an S. All right, look at number 38. Number 38 says, specially designed drop towers built for this purpose. And it asks you, do you need that? So delete the underlined portion is the answer about half the time. So we're going to delete it, and then we're going to decide whether we need to keep it. It says, specially designed drop towers reduce those problems. Do we need built for this purpose in there? No, we don't need that. It makes just as much sense by just by taking it out and say, specially designed drop towers reduce these problems. Look at number 39. Which choice provides the most effective transition between ideas in the paragraph? Okay, so you're going from one idea to another. So you got to talk about what's happening in the first one versus what's getting ready to happen. Well, the previous sentence talks about, but they provide no more than 10 seconds of microgravity and droplet sizes too small to produce accurate models of combustion rates. The rest of the paragraph says as part of the program, so we're talking about a program. So if we're talking about a program, which sentence is talking about a program? Your answer is B. The USD group sought to overcome these difficulties by participating in NASA's microgravity university program. And then the next sentence says, as part of the program. So you've got to put in sentence B, because as you're moving through the paragraph and as you're transitioning, the next sentence after the sentence that's underlined has the word program. So you're going to talk about a program, and the only one that has that is B. That's the only answer it can be. Look at number 40. Number 40 says, on the plane's ascent, passengers feel twice Earth's gravitational pull, but for brief periods at the peak of the trajectory, weightlessness or microgravity. So you've got something in parentheses. So anytime you got something in parentheses, you got to have a comma right there. Just keep that in mind. So your answer has to be either, well, which one's it got to be? There's only one with a comma. Whenever you have parentheses around something, you got to have a comma right there. So the answer is D with the comma. All right, look at number 41. At this point, the writer is considering adding the following and perform their experiment without traveling into space. It says these flights allowed the UCSD students to experience microgravity. And right there you would put and perform their experiment without traveling into space. Do we need that? Yes, we need that, because it tells you what they were doing. So yes, because it elaborates on the advantage the students gained from the flights. And it's obvious that and connects to the rest of that sentence. So the answer was A. Number 42, specifically they investigated. So in this case, this is one of the few questions I don't like. Specifically, they were able to investigate the combustion of biofuel droplets. You know, you could make a case for the word investigated. Specifically, they investigated the combustion of biofuel droplets, but the better answer is were able to investigate. 43, which choice most effectively establishes that the UCSD students' approach had solved a problem mentioned earlier in the passage relating to burning fuel on Earth? It says the larger spherically symmetric droplets burn longer. So what it was talking about, spherical and symmetric droplets. You're not going to change that because that's the kind of droplets it said it turned into. So the answer was just leave it alone. That's what we've been talking about. And the last one, it says better combustion rate models may even lead to the production of more fuel efficient engines and improved techniques for fighting fires in space or at future outposts. Do you need a comma right before the word for? No, because for fighting fires goes with techniques. You don't need to pause right there. So you're down to B, C, or D. And the difference in B, C, and D, C has no commas, D has a comma after space, and B has a comma after fires. Well, do you need commas at all? It says, of more fuel-efficient engines and improved techniques for fighting fires in space or at future outposts on the moon and Mars. Do we need to pause anywhere in there? No, we don't. Overuse of commas. They like to get you there. The answer was C. Okay, I want you to count up, once you get through this video, the number you got right. And I want you to text that to me. And we'll see who the top 10 are. There is probably about 160 of you that are watching this video. And we'll see who can rise to the top. Because I promise you, the ones that are getting what's right on the English writing are the ones that are going to pass first. Now let me reassure you this. For the past 2 years, 2 years ago, I only had 4 that did not get their diploma out of 250. Last year, we were down to 18 before the virus started. Everyone ended up getting their diploma. You are going to get your diploma as long as you work at it and do what I ask you to. When I make those phone calls on Friday or whatever time you tell me to be calling you with your study buddies, you have to be on that phone call. You have to listen to what I'm telling you so I can get you ready. It is not hard to get a 430 on this exam. I will go to the reading portion next week. We'll talk about the reading. The reading is just as important as the English writing. It's a combined score, and I'm going to show you one more time for those who weren't here before. The total score that you need is a 430. That's what we're searching for. But you can't get that score unless you do well in the English. So most of you will get right. Most of you will get right, about 18 on the reading, and SAT will give you 20. They curve the scores. So you multiply that times 10, that's 200 points. Well, you need 430. So the other 230 has to come from English writing. So say you get a 20, and they curve that to 23, then you get 230 points because they multiply the 23, let me go back, times 10, or 230. So 230 plus 200 is 430, and you pass. That's why I work so hard on the English writing side. I learned a long time ago that most all the students are going to pass because they know how to take the English writing test. It's much easier than the reading. Some of you will pass the reading alone, but you have to get a 24. And this is what it takes. To get a 24, you have to get 23 right out of 52 on the reading section. And I found that's very difficult for you to do. Some of you will. Some of you will get the 24, and then you'll also get the English writing and all that combined, and you'll make a passing score. The one thing I can tell you is be thankful that you're a senior this year. Because next year, for the seniors, they have to make 480. Last year, out of the 200 that I had pass, only about 10 of them made 480 or greater. So we have to figure out how to help the juniors. But right now, you're the last class that gets to make the 430. This should be easy for you. And all you got to do is listen and work and be at home. You know, staying at home and having instruction should be easier than even going to school. But you still have to get up. You still have to be at school on time because everything's going to be presented beginning at 7:20 Monday morning. Keep in mind, anything that I can help you with, please ask. I will try. I've had several people already call me about several things for advice. You know, these decisions are hard to make during this time. It's been very difficult for me. I'm a teacher like everybody else. I want to be in the classroom, but my age prevents me from being there. Hopefully by the spring, I'm going to be back. So for some reason, I'll be back in the classroom. So for some reason you haven't passed by then, maybe we're doing face-to-face. Let's hope. But I'm going to end this video with saying, you can do it. I am praying for you. God bless your souls, and hang in there. We'll get this done. Have a good evening.